Welcome to reality.
Hello again, everyone. Oh, look at that tagline. Apparently Jeranism hasn't changed that yet. Open your mind, there's truth inside. You're supposed to open your mind so you can receive truth from outside. Anyway, today, Jeranism apparently wishes to talk about Stephen Hawking. I am hesitant to even look into this.
What's going on, everyone? It's Jeranism, back with another video for you today. A little follow-up on the Hawking situation.
There's a Hawking situation? I was unaware there was a Hawking situation.
I brought some more evidence.
Those of you who are familiar with Jeranism know that when he says evidence, he really means more ramblings.
For people so that they can see why believing what we were taught and told about Mr. Hawking is probably not the smartest of moves. We're told he's a genius, but I mean, come on, the guy predicted things that would be released by black holes like black body radiation known as Hawking radiation.
For anyone unfamiliar with Hawking radiation, also called Hawking radiation, here's a quick and dirty description. Normally a black hole is considered to draw in all matter and energy in its immediate vicinity because of its intense gravitational fields. However, in 1972, an Israeli physicist, Jacob Berenstein, suggested that black holes should have a well-defined entropy and initiated the development of black hole thermodynamics, including the emission of energy. In 1974, British physicist Stephen Hawking worked out the exact theoretical model for how a black hole could emit black-body radiation. Hawking radiation reduces the mass and energy of black holes and therefore is also known as black hole evaporation. Hawking radiation hardly seems like a reason for Jeranism to issue one of his trademarked, but I mean come-ons, which he often offers as proof.
And now, mind you, black holes have such a low temperature, according to the theory, that they are essentially impossible to observe, period. So to see one, you have to rely on indirect observations.
So it's because they have such a low temperature, according to the theory. That theory being the one that you do not comprehend. What's wrong with indirect observations? If you can't observe something directly, you can infer what it is and what it does by its effect on its environment.
What I'm getting at here is science is already in deep trouble.
Now I wonder if you're going to show how science is in deep trouble, or just continue to ramble on.
If you haven't seen the movie The Principle yet, you definitely need to see it. Science has basically backed itself into a corner, and yet we still allow theoretical physicists to speculate on things like black holes, all of which can be compared or equal to doublethink or doublespeak, along with black matter, dark energy, dark light, dark rift, quantum loops, gravity waves, and all these other pseudoscience basically peddled for research funds.
You know, I probably could have guessed he was going to go with option 2. But we should probably congratulate the village idiot for coming up with so many science-y words.
And theoretical physicists are way past trouble area. They've created a world based on mathematics that doesn't conform with our reality.
Physics is, by definition, an attempt to mathematically express the properties of matter and energy. Primarily deals with mechanics, heat, radiation, sound, electricity, magnetism, and structure of atoms. The fact that you don't understand the math does not make it invalid.
String theory and multiverse cannot be tested.
What can be tested, however, is how well such theories fit in with the rest of observed reality.
Yet we allow them in the category of science? Why? Who? I mean, the scientific method, remember?
Agreed. The scientific method. Use it sometime.
Just because something works on paper or is pretty doesn't mean it's real.
I don't recall any research scientist ever using the "it's pretty" hypothesis in support of a theory. That's stupid.
They have allowed theories that cannot be tested or observed to be called science. And then the man dreaming of them can be called a genius. I mean, remember, no one has even ever observed an atom.
He's right, you know. No one has actually directly observed an atom. Oh, except for these fine folks who have not only directly observed atoms, but manipulated them. Now, Jeranism, was it ignorance? You just did not know about this? Or dishonesty? You knew about it and lied about it. Those are the only two options I can see.
So is this the new science, that anyone can just dream up a theory and that man can be called a genius and his untestable, unfalsifiable ideas can be called science? Well, science fans, flat Earth is actual true science.
Oh, this is going to be good. Oh, wait. Good is not the word I was looking for. Stupid! That's it. This is going to be stupid.
It can't be just dismissed because you have mathematical proof showing that other things can work. Can work doesn't mean is reality. Let's get a quote from that genius himself, Stephen Hawking.
Because there is a law such as gravity, the universe can, and will, create itself from nothing.
Oh, that was a real quote? Wasn't a joke? Oh, my bad. I'll take that rim shot back. Sorry about that. Now, for as wonderful as some find scientists and all, please remember that science has never made a blade of grass.
I was unaware that science was tasked with making a blade of grass. Well, whether they were or they weren't, they did a pretty fine job of getting us to the moon.
And science says 95% of our world can't be observed. And science holds its dogmas so close and needs them to be true so bad that they will force their ideas and their thoughts and call it evidence.
You mentioned scientific method earlier, and its importance. You were clearly talking out of your ass because you clearly don't understand the scientific method. There is no scientific dogma. Nothing is sacred. Every theory is subject to revision or replacement with a more accurate theory. That is how science continually improves. But by all means, continue to describe it as something it is not.
So on to Stephen Hawking. First off, he's lived longer than anyone else with ALS by a landslide.
And instead of offering congratulations on such an achievement, you're going to twist it into some kind of a bad thing, aren't you?
Obviously, so much so that the official ALS site doesn't name him as a famous person with the disease, even though, besides Lou Gehrig himself, he's probably the most famous person with ALS.
What is it you're saying? He doesn't have ALS? Or what are you saying? What's your point?
So, in his interviews, does he actually answer with his cheek as we're told? Does he use that cheek muscle? We will watch a little video here and find out how exactly is he communicating with these interviewers.
What would you say, Professor, has been your biggest accomplishment?
I am glad to have advanced our understanding of the Big Bang and black holes, the beginning and end of time. I almost said, to have shed light on black holes, but maybe that is a wrong metaphor.
Did you have this gift of knowledge as a child, or did you develop it? Were you a very brilliant kid?
All children ask questions. How do things work? Why are they the way they are? But as they grow up, they get told these questions are stupid, or that they don't have answers. I'm just a child that has never grown up. I still keep asking these how and why questions. Occasionally, I find an answer.
How do you deal with the inevitability that one day you will lose your ability to communicate?
We all face the inevitability of death one day. While I'm alive, I will make sure I communicate one way or another.
Is there anywhere, Professor, in the world that you have not been that you would like to go, and why?
Where I would really like to go is not anywhere on Earth, but out in space. If I were someone like Bill Gates, I would hire the space shuttle. It would only cost a few $100 million.
What, Professor Hawking, do you consider the most important discovery of this millennium?
I think the invention of printing was a breakthrough for the human race. It meant that information and discoveries could be disseminated widely, and not just on a one-to-one basis, by word of mouth, or handwritten manuscript. It led to an ever-increasing rate of scientific and technological development. This has now made printing almost obsolete, and replaced it by the internet.
Now, notice here the three words at the very bottom of his speak and spell. It says, "It will change." Let's hear his answer to the next question.
What do you expect will be the biggest change in the way we'll live in the future?
I think genetic engineering with humans is going to occur, whether we like it or not. It will change our standard of what is human, but it will be a gradual change because there's so much we don't know, and because humans take time to grow up. We won't change much in the next 100 years, but we might after that.
What?
Now, I understand some people might have an excuse for this. I don't know what it could be. It might be that he pre-writes all his answers, or whatever it is. It's still a deception in what they're telling us is going on. They say that he's able to speak with his cheek muscle, and it happens in real time. But if you look at his little speak and spell there, he doesn't even have an option to put letters in. It's simply to speak a certain sentence, or jump back a sentence, or jump forward a sentence. So if you look at the very bottom, you'll see it says, "It is the background to all our," and we don't get to see it finished, but let's hear the answer to the next question.
Professor, is cosmology?
Cosmology is the study of the whole universe, its origin, evolution, and eventual fate. It is the background to all our lives.
What in your area of study, Stephen, do we know the least about?
We feel we are tantalizingly close to a complete unified theory, but we might be miles away, or barking up the wrong tree. If I had a wish, it would be to know whether we are on the right track.
What is a black hole?
A black hole is a region that is so warped by gravity that light cannot get out. Or at least, people thought that light could not get out of a black hole until I showed that the uncertainty principle of quantum mechanics allows light to leak out slowly. Some people call this Hawking radiation.
So earlier we saw at the bottom of the screen that he said we have good evidence the universe beginning about 15 billion years ago. So let's see if that has to do with his next answer. And I also see on the bottom there.
All right, enough. What are you trying to prove here? Is it inconceivable to you that, as a possible explanation, Stephen Hawking was provided with the questions ahead of time so that he had time to produce responses that were appropriate to the questions, and then signaled via cheek muscle or whatever method the responses at the appropriate time? Is this somehow unimaginable? Can't believe I let that go on as long as I did.
Whatever's being done, it's just another form of deception.
It's not deception. The answers that were given were quite appropriate for the questions that were asked, and the questions may have been produced ahead of time. Now, why would they do such a thing? To make it more watchable. I doubt viewers would want to wait while Mr. Hawking formulated the answers in real time, letter by letter. Oh, and way to attack the person instead of his theory. I see why you do that, considering you're in no way even capable of comprehending the theory.
Welcome to this very special edition of Larry King Now. My guest today needs little introduction. The world's most famous scientist and intellectual, a man of incomparable genius, Stephen Hawking. Stephen is Director of Research at the Department of Applied Mathematics and Theoretical Physics and founder of the Center for Theoretical Cosmology at the University of Cambridge. He joins us today from the Starmus Festival in the Canary Islands. I last spoke to Stephen in 2010, and it's a pleasure to have the opportunity to pick his miraculous brain again. Stephen, when we last...
Now, you can argue with me if you want, but the man is clearly sleeping.
I'm sorry, where did your medical degree come from? I don't recall. Please enlighten us.
Alright, so honestly, didn't he look like he was sleeping for half that interview? He did to me. His cheek didn't even move, and yet he's talking and not looking at the screen, but whatever. And isn't it rude that somebody would say that it's because of their commitment to science that has allowed them to live longer than anyone else with ALS? I mean, what if somebody else had ALS and they had a commitment to cars or had a commitment to baseball cards? That doesn't count because it's not science?
How much can you twist reality? He was asked what he thought kept him going, and he responded with what he thought kept him going.
Does this not sound like a paid-for shill? How about the fact that when asked what's the biggest threat to humanity, of course, it's global warming. I'm sure that's exactly what he really feels.
Okay. Being that an overwhelming majority of the scientific community expresses exactly those feelings, why would it shock you so much that Mr. Hawking also expressed those feelings?
And I would never separate, like say, biology or chemistry or other branches of science for astronomy by their importance, because they are, I think, everything is important in science. You can never put secondary branches of science that are secondary or primary. Everything is important.
Now hold on, time out. I won't say very often that something is a dumb statement, but that was a dumb-ass statement. So even though some science is Earth-focused, on things that impact our actual lives and our actual future, we aren't allowed to put those things ahead of the study and the exploration of Jupiter, a place you'll never go to, or the stars, or, I mean, come on. It's ridiculous. I don't know why anybody would say that unless they're, I don't know, maybe a astronomer?
I don't think it's because he's a astronomer. I think it's because he's correct. All areas of science are important. What would you suggest? That people who've studied astronomy forget everything they've learned and go back to school and learn some field of science that you might find is more significant to humanity? Would you prefer that every scientist on the planet only focused on one area?
Here, Stephen Hawking is interviewed by John Oliver. So let's just listen in and see what kind of important genius-like statements come out of this little conversation.
First off, congratulations on being the first subject of our Great Mind series. Be honest, is this the single greatest honor you have ever received?
Yes.
Good. It's a little hard to read your tone of voice. When you say that, are you being sarcastic?
Yes.
I thought so. If there is one thing you want people to understand about your work, bearing in mind that most people will never understand anything about your work, what would that thing be?
Imaginary time. People think it's something you have in dreams, or when you're up against a deadline. But it's a well-defined concept. Imaginary time is like another direction in space. It's the one bit of my work science fiction writers haven't used, because they don't understand it.
Idiots. People are such idiots, because presumably, to my mind, you're simply talking about the theoretical measurement obtained from real time by a wink rotation of pi divided by 2 in a complex plane where t equals I times t. It's not that difficult to get your head around. Let's talk about artificial intelligence. In a recent op-ed column, you said, and I quote, "Success in creating artificial intelligence would be the biggest event in human history. Unfortunately, it might also be the last." Are you saying that robots are going to destroy humanity? And is that a scientific argument or the pitch for an amazing movie?
Artificial intelligence could be a real danger in the not-too-distant future. It could design improvements to itself and outsmart us all.
I know you're trying to get people to be cautious there, but why should I not be excited about fighting a robot?
You would lose.
Well, okay, to start, we don't know that, do we? We don't know that for sure, because what could a robot do that I couldn't then fight back with by simply just unplugging him, right?
There's a story that scientists built an intelligent computer. The first question they asked it was, "Is there a God?" The computer replied, "There is now," and a bolt of lightning struck the plug, so it couldn't be turned off.
Holy shit, that's the most terrifying story I've ever heard.
Yes.
Hold on. Who is talking to me right now? Is it you, or is it a sentient computer pretending to talk on your behalf?
It's me.
Yeah, but how do I know that, Professor? Because if computers had become sentient, what better way to convince people they hadn't than by co-opting the voice of the most intelligent man on the planet?
You're an idiot.
Yeah, but who's saying that, Stephen? You or the machine?
Both of us.
OK, all right. I mean, that's actually quite reassuring. You've stated that you believe there could be an infinite number of parallel universes. Does that mean that there is a universe out there where I am smarter than you?
Yes, and also a universe where you're funny.
OK, all right. Look, if you're so smart, what number am I thinking
13.
of? It was 13. I was thinking of 13. OK, that was a lucky guess. What am I thinking right now?
That you've been a huge disappointment to your family.
I wasn't thinking that. Why would I think that? No, I'm trying as hard as I can. Why is that so hard for them to understand, hypothetically? I wasn't thinking that. Let's do some quick yes or no questions. Are the following things technically possible? Life on other planets, is that theoretically possible?
Yes.
OK, what about a Schwarzschild wormhole?
Yes.
OK, what about this? Me going on a date with Charlize Theron?
No.
Not at all. In no universe?
No.
In none of the infinite universes does that happen?
No.
It's completely beyond the bounds of scientific possibility, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Quick follow-up question. In any of those potential universes, am I the one rejecting her, and that's why it doesn't work out?
No. You do realize that typing a response is difficult for me, correct?
OK, sure, yeah. It's just I'm trying to play this out because I'm just trying to see if there was any hypothetical hope.
No.
It doesn't matter. But never say never. OK, if time travel were possible, would you want to go back in time and refuse to do this interview?
Yes.
You truly are an incredibly smart man.
13, huh? Of all numbers, 13.
Okay, 13, and that's significant. Why? Would it be some metaphysical bullshit, perhaps? Weren't you the one earlier that made comments about pseudoscience?
Now, I'm not saying that the bit wasn't funny, or that people can't have a little fun. It's just for somebody who is obviously hard to book, who does so few speaking engagements in the first place, it appears that John Oliver had no problem booking him for what was a completely worthless interview, in which his jokes were written for him, and they cut and edit it like they do all his interviews. Math Powerland from the NASA channel did a great little piece on the impossibility of booking him. Funny piece, here's a little snippet, and his video is linked below in the description.
Have you ever done a booking of his? Because it says you guys are like a booking agent, and I'm trying to find, for the life of me, I can't find any engagements. But I mean, I see the guy on TV every few months or few weeks, but I mean, it's just I found it interesting that he's like such, I like to hear him talk.
Yeah, I understand. Some people just don't
Yeah, no, I don't see anything. But then it's like funny, he's on The Simpsons or he's like, you know, on a late night talk show, but it's like, when can we see him like live, like talking?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'd love to hear him speak.
Right, of course.
Ha! I like to hear him talk. That's classic.
Oh, nice. You made a joke about the speaking abilities of someone with advanced ALS. Bravo, you bastard.
Now, some people have said that I didn't correctly critique Mr. Hawking's laser experiment on the lake, and some saying that you don't need to include the height of the observer when doing the calculation of the amount of drop, or that I drew lines that were at the wrong angle. So I'll say this. The experiment that Hawking did was Hawking garbage.
I saw the experiment. It was 100% accurate. Your failure to understand or willful distortion of the experiment does not change that. And who the hell are you to criticize anyone's experiments? Let's look back at your cooling rays of the moon experiment, where you failed to take into consideration the temperature of the ground, or that an overhang or covering would retain and reflect said heat and account for any differences noticed between that area and an open air area.
There was no tape measure used to measure the actual laser height of the boat, and the laser was never even leveled. Look at this picture here. That laser should be pointing, or is pointing, directly into the water. So the fact that they could even do any experiment after that setup tells you that the whole thing's a fraud.
If the laser was aimed into the water, it never would have reached the boat. Alright, is it ignorance or dishonesty? Are you ever going to tell us which of those two motivates you to say such things?
It doesn't work. It would destroy all the data they had, even if the laser was 1 inch off in either direction. It's just going to grow exponentially. So, I say again, if anyone thinks that 24 feet of water would be hidden in 6 miles of distance, enough that you could fit a helicopter behind it, I mean, let's take it to the test. I'll bet you that we could put a 10-foot green poster board on the shore 6 miles away, and with a telescope 3 feet high, we'd see that green board.
You would lose such a bet. And as for the rest of what you said, it was more mindless rambling.
Which would, 1, prove that Hawking's experiment was a total fraud, and 2, prove to you that there is no curvature of the Earth.
So, why are you not out performing such an experiment to demonstrate this? Oh, right. That's it. Because assertions without evidence are much easier to do.
Alright, I'm going to leave you with a few quotes and a few lines from Plato's The Commonwealth, book number 7. And remember, Plato, his teacher was Socrates, and his student was Aristotle. And they basically say he laid the very foundations of Western philosophy, science, and mathematics. So pay attention to what's being said here. It's not quote mining, it's straight from his book. And you decide for yourself what is being said and could it be taken and used in a different way. Starting at line 27, arithmetic has a very great and elevating effect, compelling the soul to reason about abstract number and rebelling against the introduction of visible or tangible objects into the argument. Number 28.
Alright, shut the hell up. We can read. Everybody, stop the video, pause the video, and read these. Then you don't have to listen to Jeranism reciting them.
Well, I hate to tell you that when we're talking about what is fact and what is reality, it's this world that matters, not any other.
I'm sorry, but there's no correlation whatsoever between the statement you just made and your list of Plato's statements.
So, till next time, guys, be kind to one another, don't lie to each other, and open up your mind. There's truth inside.
There's that idiotic tagline again. Open up your mind, there's truth inside. If we take a look at the second half of that, there's truth inside. What it really means is you believe what's already inside your mind. is the truth, which will make you resistant to actual truth that can be observed in the real world and through the works of others. Ladies and gentlemen, I should really apologize. My responses to this video were basically live, I guess you'd call it. This is the first time I've seen the video, and I paused and responded as I was going through it. As a result of that, I did not know that there would be no actual science to rebut. I was thinking perhaps he would make some points, some assertions that were based in his impression of science. That was not to be the case. But with the title of Jeranism's original video being Stephen Hawking, NWO Global Warming Science Puppet, I assumed there was going to be a little science, albeit made up false Fantasyland science. Anyway, maybe next time. Seems this time the best Jeranism could do is criticize and make fun of someone not for his theories, but because he is stuck in a wheelchair due to advanced ALS. I really find that despicable, and I'm guessing you do too. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please subscribe. We'd love for you to be made aware of all future videos. And thanks for coming by. See you next time.